Hi, I'm Michelle Lewis,
And I'm Craig Lewis,
and this is the Running Tales podcast.
which is all about this.
Hi, my name is Michelle Lewis. 10 years ago, you'd have been lucky to see me run to the end of the road. These days, running is second nature to me. From marathons to park runs to putting my own running group through their paces. You'll often see me in suitably loud attire, getting ready to pound the pavements. And here's a secret, if I can do it, you can too. There's so many wonderful and inspiring stories in the world of running. And not just running, some of my favourite tales involve those who take to their wheelchairs, bikes or simply their own trusty feet in an attempt to get fitter, faster or just have some fun. In this podcast, I'm going to be in conversation with some of the most inspiring and fascinating of these people. Remember, it's your time, your speed, your way. The only person you need to keep up with is yourself.
So welcome to Running Tales. Welcome to the Running Tales podcast. This week's guest is Sarah Longstaff. She's got some pretty sensational triathlons and other aims coming up very soon. But I want to talk to Sarah, first of all, about how and why you might run 30 miles to celebrate turning 30. So Sarah, I guess that's my first question to you. Why on earth would you do that?
Yeah, whenever I say that to people, I'm always like, celebrate turning 30. They're like, I think I'd do that in a pub. But it's a strange one. It was very much a whim. I was like, oh, I want to do something to turn 30. I was having a bit of a meltdown about it, as most people do. It was like, oh, is my life where I want it to be? I'm getting old. All these type of things going through my head. And I love running. So I decided to go to Instagram, put it on my Instagram stories and say, I want to do something running related to celebrate 10 and 30. Should I run 30 miles or should I run 30k? And Instagram voted 30 miles. So then I said, should I do it in like a time frame or in one go? So this was all down to Instagram and my lovely followers, and they all replied in one go. So that was the plan. But I should probably say at this point, the furthest I've ever run was 6 miles in one go.
Wow. So you need to get some new Instagram followers.
I do, don't I? So I'd only ran 6 miles in one go. And this was, I think it might have been the end of the year. So I turned 30 on the 1st of February this year. And I think I had about a month and a half to prepare to run 30 miles. So a lot of people didn't think I could do it at all. One of the people I work with actually said, if you run 30 miles in one go, I will come into work in whatever fancy dress you decide. He was that certain. But then as I started training, he was like, oh, she's going to do this. She's actually going to do this. Because I'm very determined. And the main goal around when I actually said, right, you know what, you've voted, I'm going to do it, was proving anyone can do anything that they set their mind to, as long as you have the right mindset. Like, it doesn't matter if you're an ultra runner and you want to run 1,000 miles in one go, or whether you just want to run a park run. You can do it, as long as you have that mindset of, I can achieve it.
And I've got a load of other questions, obviously, but I need to know what fancy dress outfit he had to turn up in the end.
Well, he decided to add in a little rule and was like, well, because with the way weekends worked and when my birthday fell, my family weren't available and they wanted to support Team Me. So I did it Valentine's weekend. So it was 2 weeks after I turned 30. So he pulled out the whole, well, you didn't do it when you turned 30. You did it 2 weeks later. So he didn't do it.
Oh,
I was gutted.
Well, that is shameful after what you must have gone through.
Isn't it?
So the first thing that comes into my head is you obviously hadn't done a marathon. You've done nothing like a marathon. I think from reading your blog that you decided to do it around an area you knew quite well. First of all, were you sort of going back and forth on yourself a little bit during that run, and what was it like? Because did you get to 10 miles, 8 miles, and think, this is just far more than I've ever done, or was that point delayed a little bit later?
Well, I did decide to do a couple of training runs. So I decided, right, I'm going to have to increase my distance at some point. So I did 3 training runs before it. I did a 10 mile, a 15 mile, and a 17 mile.
Okay.
And they were amazing. I absolutely loved it. Like, I really fell in love with long distance running during them runs. But it was like 17 miles to 30 miles. Is it going to be achievable? And what makes it a bit more stupid is I injured my hip at the end of 2019. So I had a hip injury that I'd already had confirmed that I needed surgery on to fix. And during my training runs, I'd worked out anything above 15 miles and the pain was excruciating. So I was seeing a physio and I said to him in the lead up, I said, because at the start he was like, "You will do this, you can't do this." I was like, "No, we'll see." And then as we led up to it, he was like, "Oh, I think you're going to do this." And I said to him, how do you feel about me taking painkillers, like as I'm running? Like, as a physio, am I going to damage myself or is it okay? And he went, I wouldn't recommend it, but you'll get away with it. And he used to be a professional footballer and he did the same with a knee injury playing football. So he was like, "You'll be okay. Don't do it all the time, but for this run, you'll be okay." So yeah, it required painkillers, quite a few painkillers to get through the 30 miles.
And was it quite a hilly route?
I think there was about 3,500 foot of elevation in it. So a lot of people afterwards said, like, "Why did you choose that for your first long distance run?" But it was an area I know. It was somewhere where I've gone for years. It was like on dog walks and with the family and stuff. So I knew the area ish. Did get lost a few times, but it was. I love running trail running. I hate running on roads, and like I need nice scenery to help me run. Um, so it was amazing. But come the day, the weather was horrendous. It's February. I'm from the northeast. I ran in Yorkshire, in North Yorkshire, so the weather was disgusting.
So I'm just going to stop you for a second. I'm going to try and sum some of this up. You decided to do a 30-mile run in Yorkshire in February with a hip which you weren't supposed to be running on, and you'd previously only ever run 6 miles before you decided to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well done, you.
This is why everyone thought I couldn't do it.
Do you look back on it now and go, "What on earth made me do that?" Or is it just a feeling of huge pride?
There's a bit of both. I do look back and think, like, how? Like, why did I think that was a good idea? But it was the best experience of my life. Like, so far, it was amazing. Like the feeling when I finished, like I can't describe. It makes me feel a little bit emotional. I think about it. That feeling of getting to 30 miles and like the journey that it took me on through that full time. Like, I think about 7.5 hours from start to finish, but that was with stopping. And because the weather was horrendous, I had to get changed in a car park because I was soaked. But within the first 10 miles, I was like, I'm done. It was hailstoning, it was windy. It was awful.
I think one thing that got you through was you say you had a huge amount of family support on the day, and I'm sure in the run up to it as well.
It was amazing. So my family think I'm an idiot, but they'll do anything for me. So nearly my full family were there on the day. They stayed in the car the way most of the time. But my youngest sister, at one point, I think I got a mile 15 and I was in pain. I'd taken some painkillers. They weren't quite working. And I was like, I can't do it. I'm going to stop. So I said to her, I was like, will you come and walk with me for a bit and like, let me talk things through with you. So she did like a loop with me around, like, there's a reservoir there. So she did a loop around the reservoir with me. And that was a massive help. And that kept me going at that point. And I got to mile 18, which is the furthest I've ever run. And I started crying. I'm in the rain. I'm running up a hill crying. Because my watch had just told me through my headphones, "Oh, you're at mile 18." And I think that was the point that I was like, do you know what? I think you're going to do this now. Like, you've got over that. This weather's disgusting. What am I doing? There was barely anyone else around. A couple of dog walkers, fully dressed in like appropriate like clothes. And then I was like, do you know what? do it. And every time I went back to the car to get food or to change my socks because my feet were wet and I was getting blisters and like tape my toes and stuff. And they were always there. And then we always had the plan that my younger sister had recently done Couch to 5K. So she was always going to run the last 3 miles with me. And I don't think if she'd done that, that I could have kept going because I'd got blisters on the balls of my feet by that point. It was every step, it was painful. And if she hadn't have done that 3 miles, I don't think I'd have been able to do it.
So could have sort of got stuck at a marathon distance or something like that.
Yeah, probably. And I think that I'd have hated myself if I'd done that. But it was that mental barrier of can you do it, can't you do it, sort of thing.
And you mentioned that for you turning 30, with the position your life was in at the time, that it was a huge thing for you. Was it simply euphoria at the time, or is it something you've been able to carry on and feel better about reaching the dreaded 3-0? I can barely remember 30, so I'm not, but yeah. But have you sort of been able to take that on into your everyday life?
It's weird, really. 10 and 30 was probably the best thing that's ever happened to me. So I was so scared in the lead up, and I was like, this awful thing. And I've turned 30, and it just feels like I'm the most content with life I've ever been. Everything just sort of fell into place with like falling in love with long distance running. I met an ultra runner at the start of 2020, Sharon Gertler. She's got like a few records and she's amazing. And she sort of put the idea in my head of wanting to do ultra running. But with an injured hip at the time and wanting to do triathlons, I was like, oh, maybe one day, maybe in a few years. And when I decided on that, she was the person that I was like, oh, like I might end up being like her at one point. And then doing that run, it sort of made me believe in myself more to the point where I'm like, do you know what? You can do anything now. No matter what run you see or what event you want to do or anything, or just in life in general, I feel very much like I can do anything. Not being big headed, like, oh, I'm amazing, but if I think and believe in myself, I can do it.
Well, I suppose it's whether it's through work or relationships or friendships or whatever, whenever you reach the mile 15 or the mile 26 point of those things, you know that you can get through it and reach the end.
Yeah, it honestly, it was the best thing I ever did.
And have you been able to do much running since? Because I know the hip injury has come back to haunt you a little bit.
So this is what I always joke, and everyone loves the bio on my Twitter and Instagram. Ran 30 miles in February to celebrate 10 and 30, had hip surgery in March. So they're like, is that related? But yeah, I finally had hip surgery in March. I tore the cartilage and I had a hip impingement. So they did that. So at the minute, I'm still rehabbing from surgery and I'm not allowed to run yet. But I'm at month 5 now. So hopefully in the next month or so. But I've got a lot of plans. So I've already got I'm doing Kielder's marathon around Kielder Lake in March. And I keep telling my physio, I need to be able to run by then, like it's happening. And then I've got the South Downs 50k in May booked. So they're my plans booked in, like definitely done. But then I've got some other runs to do, a triathlon to do next year, and then a 4-year plan.
A 4-year plan. How much of the 4-year plan can you go into with us? Because I know some of it's a little bit top secret, isn't it?
Yeah. So, as well as the 2 that I've already mentioned for next year, I'm going to enter the ballot for the Lakeland 50, and do that in July. Then a triathlon in August. It's just a sprint one, so the run's only 5k. So that should be a walk in the park. That bit.
Have you done a lot of running and swimming before, or is this something new as well?
So running, I've always run on and off.
Sorry, cycling and swimming.
Cycling. I bought a bike, yeah, and it's never left the house. It's on a turbo trainer. That's where I'm at with cycling. Swimming, I was scared of water until the start of 2020. So the triathlon came in. I've worked in fitness for 13 years. In the management side, not in actual, like I'm not a coach. and we plan a triathlon every year. And in 2019, I worked it, and I saw these amazing people competing of all different shapes, sizes, ages, abilities, the lot. And I was like, do you know what? I could do this.
Yeah.
So I decided to, but then COVID happened and stopped it. The event happening in 2020. 2021, I was getting treatment on my hip that meant I couldn't do it. Obviously, this year I've had surgery, so I can't do it. So the plan to do it next year. But yeah, I was terrified of water. So everyone thought it was hilarious when I said I was going to do one. Now, love swimming, love open water swimming. I do. I've got an event this next month in Cornwall, swimming in the sea, first sea swim. And everyone keeps telling me about the sharks and the crabs, so this is going to be fun. But yeah, running will be my best of that. Cycling, I'll probably cause a crash. I thought that, but we'll see.
And I think you're also hoping to do a lot of this for charity in some way as well. There's ideas on that front too.
There is, yes. So the triathlon, when I initially decided to do that, I set a fundraising page up for Tommy's baby loss charity.
Yeah.
Because at the time, my brother lost his son, my nephew, he was stillborn. So that was for that. So the triathlon will be for Tommy's baby charity. But the rest of it, because I've got a 4-year plan, I want to do this not only for me, but to help someone else and help other people. So I haven't found the right one yet, but I want to find a charity that I can work with that's not a big charity. Like, I don't want to work, like, nothing against the big charities, but I just feel like I could help more for a smaller charity, help them fundraise for the next 4 years, give them some publicity, and like help them with my time and be like, I've got time. Do you want me to help with anything, volunteer, whatever? But I want to find one that I have a connection with and feels right. So I'm still a bit, because with the 4-year plans, the plan is in the next 4 years, I want to attempt to beat a fastest known time, which that's the secret. That's why I'm not telling anyone what that event is or the run or whatever. But I'm going to attempt to beat a fastest known time. That's the plan.
Well, it's quite fun, the fastest known times. So I spoke to a couple of other people about these, and someone I was speaking to recently was also saying that they were going to have a crack at one soon, and they wouldn't tell me either, because the worry is as soon as you tell people, somebody else goes, oh, I might be able to get faster on that. Then the aim gets harder and harder, doesn't it?
That's the thing. And initially, so when I did the 30 miles, my next goal, I was like, oh, the end race goal is the mountain spine race. So I was like 260 miles on the Pennine Way. That was my end goal race. And Damien Hall and John Kelly have constantly fought over that fastest known time, and the documentaries and stuff are amazing, and that's all I watch now. And that was the end goal. And now this race, I'm not going to go into it too much because everyone will find out which one it is, but it's a lot more than 268 miles. So in the next 4 years, the plan is to do the spine race as a training race at some point. Hopefully, after I've done 100 miles first, get that done, do a 100-mile race, and then attempt the spine race in advance of this.
Is it fair to say I wonder, sort of a 2-part question. Is it fair to say you've become a little bit obsessed with this? And also, what would 29-year-old you, the whole year and a bit away or whatever it would be looking, going, what on earth has happened?
Wow. It's the 29-year-old me would be like, you're an idiot, because on this journey, so when I used to run, so last year running me, I could barely run a 5k without being out of breath, unfit, and I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, I don't feel right. And I'd been diagnosed with exercise-induced asthma at the time, but I was like, this isn't, like, I feel so out of breath. And then I was actually diagnosed as full asthmatic. I did the peak flow and I was in like the red zone. I was like, oh, I can't breathe. So I'm now on steroid inhalers, and within the first month of being on steroid inhalers, I was a totally different runner. Like, I went for a run and I was like, I'm not unfit. It's just my lungs weren't working. Like, I can breathe. So me then would be like, no, not a chance. are you going to be able to run 30 miles? Don't even get that thought in your head. And now I'm like, I can do anything. What was the first question?
It seems to have given you a really sort of positive mindset.
Yeah, it's changed me as a person. Like it is my life now. And everyone I work with, I'll just randomly go, did you know they recommend you should gut train 2 weeks before an ultra? And they're like, what are you talking about? They're like, you must have a compartment of your brain that's just like all this rubbish about ultra running. Because I just spend my time listening to podcasts about ultra running, learning about nutrition. Because on that 30-mile run, I got to the point where I was stupid and I hadn't researched it enough, and all I'd had was sugary food and cake like a child, all this sugary stuff. And I got to mile 20 and I just couldn't eat anymore. I felt physically sick for the last 10 miles. And then I stopped, and as soon as I stopped the run at 30 miles, well, I went over 30 miles because I was a bit scared my watch after I'd stopped it, it'd go, oh, well, actually, that wasn't 30 miles. And then if it's not on Strava, it didn't happen, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So I'd gone over a bit and I'd stopped, and my full body just started to shut down. I was shaking. I was going to pass out. Like, so now I'm like, if you're going to do this, you're going to learn everything about it that you possibly can, like reading loads of books about ultras. Like, I know you've interviewed Rob Pope, who ran across America. Like, he's just amazing. And it's all this research, right? What worked for them? What can I try? Like, who do I need on my team? What coach can I go with? But it's a little bit hard trying to do it while you're not allowed to run. But
it sounds like you were in a situation where when you well, we'll say when you were allowed to run, even though that's blurring the boundaries a little bit. You sort of
that loosely.
Yeah, you kind of did an ad hoc training thing in the last desperate moments before doing the 30-mile run. Now that you're sort of planning everything in depth, you've not been able to put it into practice yet. You must be desperate to get running again.
It's driving me insane. I've always said I use running as a form of therapy. Like, it helps with life. So I don't like running with other people. So everyone's like, oh, join your running club. And I'm like, I'm antisocial. I like to run on my own. Headphones in. I've got a husky, so she comes running on like shorter runs. She's not allowed on long runs. So she comes running with me, and my pace is fantastic when she's attached to me. But it's just, I'm learning a lot because the injury I did was from running, and they said that it was because I didn't strengthen condition, so my joint took the impact of my running. So that's been like, right, okay, you do this properly or you're going to end up injuring yourself. And that's all I'm allowed to do at the minute is I can strengthen condition and I can swim and cycle. That's all I'm allowed right now. So it has been a good learning curve, really. It's made me look at it and go, if you were just going to hammer yourself running, you're just going to damage yourself forever. Whereas at least now, like, I got to a point in my recovery where they weren't sure if I was going to need surgery again. And it was either I damaged a muscle or I needed surgery again. And I had that moment where I was like, oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. I've got all these plans. And I was speaking to someone who was a running coach that I know, and he was like, look at it like this. If you fix it now, you just delay your recovery a little bit and you'll achieve your 4-year plan. If you don't fix it now, you're never going to achieve that. I was like, well, actually, yeah, stop feeling sorry for yourself. It's fine. Like, you'll be back running eventually.
I think
just focus.
That is such good advice, because so many of us who go out running, we're sort of like, oh, I've got an event coming up, or I really want to go running with my mates at the weekend, or I want to get out with the latest podcast on my own away from everyone else. And we just go, well, I'm going to run through the pain. I'll run off this injury. And actually it's the worst thing to do, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's what I did when I initially injured my hip. I had this pain one run and I just ignored it and I went running constantly still. And they did say to me, you can't make the injury worse, but it felt like I did at the time. And obviously it's delayed it. COVID didn't help. So at the end, I did that at the end of 2019, the injury. But with COVID, I didn't get treatment until last year and all that sort of thing. But it has made me realise I need to focus on everything when it comes to running. And I was always that person who was scared of failure. So everyone before the 30 miles said, oh, why didn't you raise money for charity doing it? Like, you're doing something amazing. I was like, but that's putting pressure on me, and if I fail, I fail, and it affects other people then. Whereas if I just fail, I just embarrass myself on this. But I've just read a book from a runner called Matt Wyman, Failure is an Option. And that was amazing. All about like you can DNF a race as long as you learn something from it and you've put your all in, and not every race is going to be your race.
Yeah, and I think as an ultra runner, I mean, I've not done an ultra, so I can't speak from personal experience, but I've spoken to a few people who have, and as an ultra runner, I think a DNF is a bit of an occupational hazard, which every ultra runner has. So you have to, I guess, be able to get over that hurdle as well.
Yeah, that it's going to come. Like just because I've run 30 miles doesn't mean all these other races are going to go my way, and I'm going to feel okay on the day, and I'm going to get there. And you can't plan your race conditions. I didn't plan mine at 30 miles, so the 3 runs leading up to it had been, they were cold because it was January, February, but it was sunny, it was nice. And this day it rained. I fell over in the mud 3 times. I remember the last time I fell over in the mud and I just sat on my knees and I was like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? But that happens. They're not all going to be amazing days. And obviously the opposite way, you'll have races that are so hot, you don't know how you're going to finish and you'll want the rain.
Oh well, you may have been lucky over the last week or two not to be able to go running.
I see people running, I'm like, I'm not actually jealous right
Yeah.
now. It's a bit too hot.
Yeah. With this journey you've done, what would your advice be to other people who want to sort of think I need to embrace running, but are maybe a bit nervous of failure or of just getting out there for the first time?
I think the main thing I'd tell anyone is to just do it. Try it. What's the worst that could happen? I was always scared of, I was always had this thing of I hated people looking at me. And like I only started running in shorts 2 years ago because I didn't want attention when I ran and all this sort of thing. And no one cares. No one cares what you look like when you run. No one cares if you're out of breath. No one cares if you stop or have to walk for a bit or if you fail at a run. Like I've gone out for a run and turned around and gone home because it wasn't working. And that's fine. The only person that's bothered is yourself. And if you don't try it, you'll never know what you can achieve. If I didn't try at 30 miles, I might never have these plans of aspiring to be an ultra runner. But I did it. And anyone can do it. That's what I always say to anyone. As long as you have the right attitude and the right mindset, you can do anything.
And it's a great sport for that, running, isn't it? Because we can all sort of do it to a degree. I mean, I guess we can all go out and kick a football around or whatever, but it's slightly different with running, isn't it? You're normally only, if you're competing at all, you're normally only competing against yourself anyway.
Yeah, and I want to say it's a relatively cheap sport to get into, but it can be quite expensive as well. But it is one of the things you can just shot on a pair of trainers, whatever clothes you want, and just go out the door. It's as easy as that.
Yeah, I love the sort of the debate over whether running is cheap, because I think you first run it when you grab a t-shirt out the cupboard and your old pair of gym shorts you haven't worn for 2 years and normal trainers, that's cheap. But once you're getting your feet fitted for the right trainers and everything else,
and you get in that world of buying everything. So anything that pops up on social media that like, oh, for runners, I'm like, oh, I'll have that. It's that running joke. I'm someone who's all the gear, no idea sort of attitude. I'll just buy it because someone else has told me it's good. And I'll try it.
Good stuff. One final question. It's a little while off, and I know you've got plenty of other plans beforehand. Is the ultimate goal going to be 40 and 40, at 40 at 40, 50 at 50?
Well, by that point, I hope to have ran a lot more miles than that, but I think it might become a tradition. It might even become a tradition of every year. It might not next year, 31 for 31, but it just depends how my recovery goes. And then I've got the marathon, well, just over 26.5 miles in March to do. But I do like the idea of that. And initially when I said I want to do 30 miles to turn 30, and everyone was like, oh, you're going to keep it up. And at the time I was like, oh, I'll barely finish this one. But now I can do it. I'm thinking, I probably will. I've said it now.
There we go. It's out there. So Running Tales exclusive. Watch this spot, people. Sarah, thank you so much for your time. That's been great.
That's fine. Thank you. It's been nice.